the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors to order on Thursday, October 13th at 6:38. Thank you for your patience. We were having some technical difficulty. It will be recorded. You may not be able to see it live, but you can see it later. And we need to go on because we do have people here that wish to speak. First, we'll start with our native land acknowledgement. Director Benaloga will lead the acknowledgement this evening.
We acknowledge the land on which we sit and which we call the North Clackamas School District rests on the traditional and indigenous lands and village sites of the native peoples of the Kalapuya, Chinook, Malala, and the Clackamas. We take this opportunity to offer gratitude for the ability to learn, work, and be a community on this land, and we offer thanks to the original caretakers of this region. We recognize the historic policies of colonization, genocide, relocation, and assimilation that affected Indigenous and Native families, both past and present, and that will affect those in the future, and honor the resilience and revitalization of our Indigenous and Native communities. We pay our respects to the elders, both past and present, who have been the stewards of this land throughout the generations.
Thank you, Vice Chair Benaloga. I will then lead us in the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, justice. Okay, we'll take care of a few things here. The minutes is next in the board packet. Board members, you will find the minutes of the September 22nd, 2022 meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Chair Bauer, I move approval of the September 22nd meeting of the North Clackamas School District Board of Directors of the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Director Schradel, second.
Thank you, Director Schradel. So there is a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll call for a vote. Director Schradel,
Aye.
Director Way,
Aye.
Vice Chair Benaloga,
Aye.
and myself and I. The motion passes with a vote of 4-0. In the board packet, you will find the consent agenda for this evening's meeting. The items on the consent agenda are employment changes, travel request, Cb and Schellenberg Center DECA program, travel request, Cb and Schellenberg Center FFA, and travel request Clackamas High School girls varsity basketball. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Director Benaloga?
Yes, I move approval of the consent agenda, including employment changes, travel request Cb and Schellenberg DECA, travel request Cb and Schellenberg FFA, and travel request Clackamas High School girls varsity basketball.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Way second.
Thank you. So there's a motion by Director Benaloga, a second by Director Way. Any discussion? Call for a vote. Director Schradel?
Aye.
Director Way?
Aye.
Vice Chair Benaloga?
Aye.
And myself, Bauer, aye. So the motion passes with a vote 4-0. Next, we have community comments. I have a little bit to read first, just as a reminder. Community comments is an opportunity for our community to share their ideas and opinions with the board. Input is welcome and valued. It is our duty to keep it safe and respectful for everyone, students, staff, and our community. This is not a time for discussion or debate. If you have handouts or materials for the board, please present them to the board's executive assistant, who will distribute them to the board members after the meeting. Letters to the board are always welcome, and each of us reads the input. Requests for information should be requested as outlined in policy KBA-AR. In order to assure that persons who wish to appear before the board may be heard at the same time, conduct its meetings properly, efficiently, speakers will be limited to 2 minutes. Time will begin after you state your name and residence. Any individual desiring to speak will have indicated their desire prior to the board meeting. Speaker will be required to give their name, city of residence, the group, if any, which is represented. If there are more patrons desiring to present comments than time allowed, the board chair has the authority to reduce the presentation time for individual speakers or institute a prioritization process that with first priority to students and then attention to order of sign up and city of residence. Speakers may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs that are of concern to them. The board is restricted from hearing and will not consider complaints regarding any individual district staff member or any person connected with the district. As an organization centered around youth and their positive development, all speakers will model respectful public comment, be mindful of civil discourse. The board vests in its chair or presiding officer authority to terminate the remarks of any individual when those remarks do not adhere to the rules established by this policy. We also received letters, and since the last board meeting, the letters that we received consist of assistance with finding information about North Clackamas School District and to help them complete application for the budget committee vacancies that we have. The deadline was Friday. Assistance with finding non-consent form on the website, concern about gun threats in our schools, concern about no recording of board work sessions and the length of public comment, process for maintaining safety in our schools, board meeting schedule, concern for families walking their children to school and their safety. So we have 3 people, and I'd like to welcome you. If you would like to come up together because you are a family. I have Michael Corbus, Jennifer Corbus, and then Kylie. Whatever works for you. Okay, after you state your name and your city of residence, then the 2 minutes will begin. Oh. Yes. 2 minutes each? Yeah. Oh, okay, sure. Okay. Okay, welcome.
Okay.
Introduce us all.
Okay. I'm Michael Corbus from Oak Grove area, Milwaukee. This is my wife, Jennifer Corbus. She has been a substitute teacher here. And this is my daughter, Kylie, our youngest child. We have 2 boys one has gone to Rex Putnam, one graduated last year or a couple years ago, and another one is a senior, and she's a freshman at Rex Putnam. So, okay. So, we need to address an issue that has been building for a while, in my experience. Our
Sorry to
goal is not
interrupt.
to get kids in trouble, but to affect change. Let me first give you,
Can I interrupt just?
yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, let's just let people see it here. Okay. These are, all right. So, as I said, we need to address an issue that has been building for a while. Our goal is not to get kids in trouble, but to affect change. Let me first give you a bit of background. My son Levi is a senior at Rex Putnam High School, as I said, and he runs a Christian club. He has taken a lot of hate this year, in particular from the LGBTQ kids, for simply being a Christian who does not believe the way they want him to believe. What drives this hate is this oppressor-oppressed ideology that is being supported in our schools and culture. It has given them permission, the LGBTQ kids, permission to spew lots of hate at Christians and Christianity, which they have been told is the oppressor religion. I have heard it. I have heard this from teachers and from students. My son gets lots of online hate, lots of comments, which we have here on the board. Kids making sexual sounds in his ear in the hallways. It is wrong, but it is what we expected, right, to happen, and we prepared him for it. But a couple of weeks ago, it all changed when they involved his disabled sister, Kylie. who is a freshman in the hate. And I want to read some of the most recent hateful messages they received. But before I do, let me be very clear. There are many LGBTQ people I know, many who are friends. And as friends, we have agreed to disagree on some viewpoints, as it is America, and freedom and disagreement is part of being an American and an Oregonian. I think we would all agree. But many, not all of this younger generation of LGBTQ kids are vicious bullies. And I know people may not know that if they haven't been exposed to it, but we have, and I will show you. Having been enabled by this oppressed ideology. So here are some of the comments made at my kids by kids they go to school with, they actually walk in the halls with, for simply not believing the way they want them to believe. Homophobic cracker ass bitch. Sister need
Point of
a
order,
guard
Chair.
guard.
I always wonder if the
It is.
people who come and speak before the board actually follow the policies of the school district and actually bring their complaints before the teacher, the school building, the administration before.
Directors
Yeah.
online.
I mean,
Yeah, well,
the
the truth has got to get out.
We have policies to help people.
no, listen, you got to be exposed to this. This is part of the problem. This group, you can't say anything about, but they've just come and said about a special needs child. You need to let this get out. People need to hear it. You're destroying a generation of kids by coddling them and making them the group that nobody can say anything against. I have people that I know, friends, who are LGBTQ, but we have to let these things be exposed. How are we going to change it?
So this is a time just for input.
Okay, I'm going to continue reading. You got to hear it. They called her Tard Guard, a threat. That's a threat towards her. Anybody else, if anybody else says that, and I understand there's a lot of fear. There's fear amongst teachers. There is a culture of fear when it comes to this issue. But if you won't let it get exposed, it's never going to get fixed. All right? I hope 19 men pass your ass around at a massive orgy, you dumb fucking scag. Your Pope literally rapes little boys' head ass. I'm sorry you've never had an orgasm and you're upset I get more pussy. Are you for real? Like, just say you like boys and move on. Suck my arse, biatch. I am about as straight as your bottom teeth are. Does he know that Jesus is dead? I hate to break it to you, babe, but you are going to hell. You're a waste of flesh, my mother. Somebody's mother said that. Spoken like someone who doesn't get bitches. It's a sin to look like you. Like the beliefs of gay people, how about you respect these nuts while I'm piping your dad? Talking about me. Can you imagine what would happen? Imagine this. I say this to everybody. Imagine what would happen if a student of another faith, this happened to them. That the whole world, the media would be beside themselves. But with Christianity, and this is true, nobody cares. It's the oppressor religion in their minds. Now, my daughter and son will be fine. My daughter loves everybody, even those who hate her. And my son needs no one's pity, and he is not a victim because I raised him to expect to be hated and misunderstood by some. That's life. That's part of life. But more of a concern is that the culture and public schools seem to be doing their best to raise a generation of kids that are made weak, not strong, by this oppressed ideology that is so destructive. These kids felt they were justified in threatening a hate crime against a special needs child, someone who experiences disability, and her family, in order to feel better about themselves because the family does not believe the way they want them to. That's tragic. Public schools are appeasing these kids with short-term, feel-better solutions that lead to long-term destruction. One of my son's teachers, who was well-meaning, this is a well-meaning lady, pulled him from class a few days ago and tried to convince him he was wrong about Christianity. A clear violation. She couldn't even imagine the hate from these kids till we told her and showed her. She assumed the narrative that Christians are the oppressors. There are other teachers out there who are not so well-meaning, who say, we need to accept all viewpoints, and then with a wink and a nudge say, except for those hateful, intolerant Christians. And we've seen it online. It's been recent videos that have come online. This ideology is creating a bunch of young, bigoted LGBTQ bullies. This does not prepare these kids for success, but prepares them for certain failure. The moment someone disagrees with their life choices, as an adult, they are either going to attack with hate and violence or harm themselves or both. This is what will happen if you can't take disagreement. It needs to stop now. And we need to start to teach and empower these kids that the ability to disagree without hateful threats is okay. It's not only okay, but absolutely necessary for a successful life. Let me say one more thing. I'm asking respectfully those in the LGBTQ community, hold on, teachers and administrators in schools that see this oppressor ideology for what it is, divisive, destructive, and hateful, to please fight this before it destroys a generation. Thank you.
I'm speaking for Kylie as a member of a marginalized group who does experience inequality. She does not view herself as oppressed or as a victim, nor does she want anyone else looking at her as either of those. Considering herself oppressed implies that she is not empowered to live her best life. She wants to grow up with a sense of empowerment, that she can create the life she desires to live right alongside everyone else in the community and be a productive part of it. She hopes that schools, school districts, society will help to empower not only her, but also her peers to walk in the freedom that our nation gives them, knowing that although not everyone will understand them, they have the ability to create the life they desire.
Thank you. That is 6 minutes. Thank you.
Don't let
No.
don't let
That's
the
6
favorite
minutes.
pet group,
Thank you.
don't let the favorite.
Thank
pet
you.
group,
Please, we've got other,
counteract the people who are really.
we have other,
marginalized. She doesn't speak. She has no voice.
thank you.
Can't even use the bathroom if
She
you're
has-
not set up for her.
She has no voice, but
Okay,
it doesn't matter because
We
you're
need to
afraid
move
of this group.
on. We have
I
a lot
say
on our agenda.
Focus on the issues and let's fix them and not out of fear,
Please.
forget about them, okay?
Cut the mic, please. Okay, I forgot what I was- Okay, next on, we need to move on. Please leave. We need to move on. Next on our agenda is North Clackamas Education Association NCEA featured educator. And I would like to welcome Jesse Hendricks Dobson forward. I'll take a deep breath here and
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jesse Hendricks Dobson. I use he, him pronouns, and I have the pleasure tonight of introducing NCEA's Featured Educator of the Month for October. I am extremely grateful to be introducing our featured educator, especially because once upon a time, I had the privilege of working with them. Emma Tinker is a physical education teacher at Rock Creek Middle School. Emma and I were actually hired at Rock Creek at the same time, and it has been a pleasure to watch her grow into her role there. From supervising sixth graders at outdoor school to the amazing care she takes with her students, Emma leads with care, love, and empathy. Emma was nominated by other folks who also see what an amazing educator she is. I would like to take a few minutes to read some of the powerful statements that demonstrate how lucky we are to have a teacher like Ms. Tinker. Emma Tinker is a great advocate for pursuing a healthy lifestyle. She has incorporated that passion for physical activity and exercise into her profession as a physical education specialist. Emma is a leader by example who demonstrates to her students how fun being active can be. She puts the interest of her students at the center of her teaching and creates novel ways for them to connect with a variety of physical activities. Another teacher remarked, Emma Tinker has always been dedicated to helping students stay active. She is great at motivating through exercising and games and activities, and that they want to learn more about being physically active. Emma is kind and caring and always puts others before herself. Lastly, Emma is patient and has the temperance of no one I've ever met before. She somehow maintains her cool in the gym filled with sixth graders, all with a smile on her face. Students love being in her class and seek her out during passing time and before and after school because she makes the effort to connect with them. We were also able to collect some quotes from Ms. Tinker's students. One student remarked, Mrs. Tinker is the nicest teacher I know. Another teacher exclaimed, I wish I had Ms. Tinker for PE. The last student remarked, Mrs. Tinker made me like PE and I didn't before. While simple, I think that these student quotes demonstrate how beloved that she is by staff and students alike. It is now my privilege to introduce NCEA's featured educator of the month for October, Emma Tinker.
Do I have to get close? Is this good enough? Oh. Okay, a little closer. Almost brought tears to my eyes. I was asked to just talk about the joys and challenges of teaching, and I think it was highlighted in the kind words. My biggest joys of teaching is just seeing students build their confidence in themselves, both like physically, I was crying, and like emotionally and mentally. I really work on like teamwork and building those social emotional skills for students so that they can, you know, find that confidence in themselves. And the challenge, I tell my students, the challenge for me is like, I really am a positive person and I aim to like build and have positive conversations with them. So I tell them, I don't want to be on you about, you know, misbehaviors or certain stuff. Like I want to use that time to connect with you. And I think that has really come across and allowed me to engage with students like all across the board, is just really telling them that I am here to build a positive relationship with them. And I love teaching. It was my dream job. And I have a lot of support from family and friends and my admin here, which has made it a lot more enjoyable for me when it does get tough. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations. Any comments from other board members? We appreciate your hard work and your relationship building. Director Benaloga?
Yeah, I just wanted to say congratulations, first of all. But I also wanted to mention, I love that you mentioned that it's about physical activity, but it's also just about wellness. It's just about taking care of your whole self and what that looks like for you, and teaching our young people how to do that. I think that's a really important skill. And I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad you're in the district, and I'm glad that you're focusing on that whole body, whole mind wellness. I think that's so important. So thank you for all that you do.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other comments or input from board members online? Okay, well, thank you so much. You're a role model.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report. I turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Shay James, for this agenda item and report.
Thank you. Good evening. That was wonderful. So nice to see our teachers and all the hard work that they do. Goes along with the theme for us in North Clackamas, as you have heard this year, is celebrating success and gratitude. So I want to start off by acknowledging and celebrating our amazing staff. Two of those members have been acknowledged regionally and nationally. We're proud that Ethelyn Tumalad was named the 2022 Oregon Teacher of the Year. And this year we have been equally proud and excited that Ron Antlitz from Alder Creek Middle School was announced as the 2023 Regional Teacher of the Year. And these awards come with opportunities to be ambassadors on behalf of our school and our school district across the state and the U.S. So we're very proud of how they have represented North Clackamas School District. Moving into our Division 22 report for the 2021-22 school year. School districts are required to report to our school board and community in a public board meeting on compliance with Oregon's Division 22 standards for public elementary and secondary schools every year. These standards are the OARs that govern standard practices in public schools. The Division 22 standards include over 50 individual rules, which can be categorized into 4 large buckets. So teaching and learning, health and safety, district performance and accountability, and human resources and staffing. Here you see some examples of what specific standards are in each category. So for instance, there are fingerprinting-based background check standards connected to the human resource standard that you see there. Another example you see illustrated on this slide is the state assessment requirements that are linked to teaching and learning standards. So just to help understand how that works a little bit. Over the past 6 weeks, the North Clackamas executive team has reviewed the requirements for compliance in the 2021-22 school year, which was last year, as we know. And staff has indicated we are in compliance with requirements, with required standards for the 2021-22 school year, with the exception of OAR 581-022-2263. Regarding required minutes of physical education instruction at the middle school level. This is a new requirement that many school districts are struggling to meet, including North Clackamas. We are not meeting the requirements due to the following reasons. Meeting the PE minutes would reduce core instructional minutes. With our current schedule, these minutes would eliminate all other electives for our students. We do not have enough facility space to implement these additional minutes. And statewide, we do not have enough certified staff to comply with the PE requirements. In addition, I just want to note that health and wellness minutes do not count towards this as well. So moving forward, district staff will work with the Oregon Department of Education to further understand methods for meeting this new standard. Because the current middle school schedule meets other instructional priorities, we do not recommend changing the middle school schedule for this one state requirement at this time. Staff will continue discussions with ODE regarding options moving forward and how we can meet this requirement. Following my report tonight, staff will post compliance information on the school district website by November 1st and submit the appropriate report to ODE by November 15th. So in addition to Division 22, I wanted to update you on 2 new advisory committees that we have implemented this year based on board feedback, one being the Youth Equity Advisory Committee. And just wanted to give you an update that we held our first meeting with students. We had 20 students that participated in that, in addition to 3 board directors that were present. It was a great meeting. We started with students receiving a tour of the district office after introductions and talking a little bit about what the district does to support our buildings. And then our students went right to work and maximizing their student voice and the impact of how they want to affect change on behalf of the amazing ideas that they have. And I just want to share that the second meeting will be held later this month, and stay tuned. We'll keep you posted on how that is going. Another committee that we have enacted came out of our new Senate Bill 732, which is a Superintendent's Advisory Committee that informs the board on equity impacts, situations, and policy that negatively impacts our systems and folks in it. And as you know, we have a design committee right now at this moment that has met once in terms of engaging in discussion around what the recruitment, the application, and the protocol process should look like in order to guide the charter. So they will continue to meet until they flesh this out, and we'll be bringing this back to you for next steps and how they're going to move forward in completing the charge for Senate Bill 732. And as suggested by our board last year, we are holding our first official community public forum in which we're interested in two-way communication and dialogue with our community. And we're holding our first forum on October 25th. Currently, we have 56 people signed up and have had a total of 64 total inquiries with people that were interested in coming, but maybe that night doesn't work for them, so they've asked us to keep them posted. So with 56 folks at this time, we had a cutoff at 40. We're trying to evaluate whether we could accommodate all 56 of the folks that have signed up in this session, or if we need to open another session. And so we will determine that within the next day or two and get communication out to folks so that they are aware of that. And so at this time, staff's available for any questions that might have come from this information.
Thank you, Superintendent. Any questions for our superintendent? And I will look for hands online. Vice Chair Benaloga, I see you.
I just had one quick question. How close are we on the middle school minutes? It's 180 minutes a week, correct? And so how close are we to that standard?
So right now, the requirement is 225 minutes. And we are, I would say, at about 83 minutes per week. So there's a significant difference in what we would be looking at to meet the requirements of the minutes.
Any other questions? I was just wondering, you said other districts are struggling with this for a number of reasons. Is ODE coming back with any options or ideas, or you're just starting the discussion now?
Yeah, this has been a discussion that has been taking place in the last year or two, and will continue to move forward this year in folks looking for, this was a gradual entry into this new requirement. And so sometimes folks don't get as loud when they're, till they have to implement it and do it. So fully expect that there will be quite a bit of conversation this year around this, as I would say that the majority of school districts are struggling to meet this requirement for all of those different reasons that I named.
Anything else? Thank you for the information, and I commend you for reaching out and with the community and our students and hearing lots of different voices.
Thank you
for that work. It's important. Moving on, next is board reports. Let's start online. Director Way.
Thank you, Chair Bauer. Hi, everybody. I'll keep my camera off because my Wi-Fi has just been very spotty, so I'll spare everybody the delay in my video. But I was able to attend the first Student Equity Committee that our Superintendent James had just talked about on September 27th. That was held in the very room that folks are sitting in, and it was just wonderful. I know we had about 25 or so students there. Our chair and our vice chair also attended, and I am just blown away by just the amount of talent and passion, from as young as 8th graders that were in the room to students that were graduating seniors this year, and just so appreciate their voice and their leadership in the first meeting in terms of, how we can work together, how we can really tackle some tough issues that students are facing. And there was one particular activity that I really liked where it was a breakdown, from the very local level of how students can impact their own schools to then school districts and then the state and then US just laws. So it was a really cool and neat exercise to see how students are already really thinking about, all the different ways that they can create change. So that was the first thing that I did. And then I was also fortunate to continue to be a part of the OSBA, the Oregon School Boards Association's Color Caucus group. We are still in the process of recruiting executive leadership members to our group to fill some amazing spots with voices from around the state. So we are still, active recruitment for our Color Caucus. And some folks may know, I know certainly school board members do, but we have our annual convention, fall convention that OSBA has the second week of November, starting, I believe, on November 10th. So I know many of us will be participating in the workshop. There's going to be, upwards of 400 to 500 school board members from around the state that come every year. And I'm really excited to go and just sort of share some of the great work that we're doing in our district, and also hear from other school districts of how they're talking about challenges and opportunities that they are seeing. So stay tuned, but that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Way. Director Schradel.
I have no report this week. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Benaloga.
Yes, thank you, Chair Bauer. I also was in attendance at the Youth Equity Advisory Committee, and these kids are amazing. They are amazing. The way they think, and that they were so willing to be vulnerable and speak in front of a bunch of adults and talk about what works and talk about the really hard stuff, like some of the stuff that's not working for them. These kids are amazing. So I was glad to be a fly on the wall and be able to listen and just see the minds working. And I think Director Way alluded to this already, that at the end, the kids really got to talk about, where does that change need to happen? Does it need to happen at home, at school, at the district level? Does it need to happen at the state level? And it's amazing. These kids already understand that this is just as much about policy and an umbrella of understanding. They already get it. It's actually, it was very cool. So I was very glad to be a part and be able to listen. I also also being working on policy, wellness, benefit, and the ROW collaborative meeting, which again is another wonderful way that our schools support our community. I also was able to go to the Nelson and Clackamas football game. Boy, that sunset over there is just gorgeous. It's beautiful. That campus is beautiful. And it was a great game. I was glad to be there. And then I've been to a couple of Milwaukee football and soccer games, was able to be there for homecoming and just see the excitement and the energy that our kids have this year. So it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Benaloga. You have students at Milwaukee, so she's very involved. I have to get out. I have grandchildren, so mine have grown, but I try to get out as much as I can. I attended the Rao Middle School open house. There were lots of parents there, students, talked to some teachers. Everybody was just saying this year so far is just a whole different feeling of, and it's more positive. Oregon Trail open house, there were so many parents there. And I also was on the Student Equity Committee and agree with everything that the other two directors said, that youth are just, they're our hope for our future, and the leadership that they already have and exhibited at their schools is just amazing. Senate Bill 732, I sat on that initial one and look forward to the recommendations that they'll bring to us. I met with a community group regarding books in the library. Went to Clackamas and Nelson volleyball. That was fun. I couldn't make the football game. We were out of town. And plan to attend the Oregon Children's Center gala on Friday. It's a nonprofit to support children suffering impacts of abuse. And one of our board members is also on that board. And it's a great nonprofit. So that's all I have. Let's move on. Class size report. Next on the agenda is the class size report. I welcome Assistant Superintendent Yvonne Dibley to report on this important information. Thank you for coming forward. And then you can also introduce your other speaker. I'll let you do
Absolutely.
that.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you, Director Bauer and directors. I'm here with my esteemed colleagues, Dr. Cowan and Dr. Williams Rodriguez, who will do this annual report with me. As we get started, just wanted to go ahead and start us off with the number of our students enrolled in North Clackamas as of October 5th, 2022. We ended the 21-22 school year with 16,210 students. So this is an increase of about 488 students from where we began, or where we ended. Every year or every spring, we look at staffing ratios and we look at the projected enrollment. Last year, when we brought our administrators together, we knew that we faced some challenges as we had about 800 students that we had as far as a lower enrollment amount. And then we also had a lot of our students in our virtual online program. which definitely impacted the sizes, the class sizes that our in-person learning classrooms had. So with these different enrollment amounts, we wanted to go ahead and again, look at our projected amounts and ensure that we staffed our classrooms correctly. So this slide shows where elementary, middle, and high school were staffed. And obviously there are different staffing ratios, and ratios are adjusted for families that are experiencing poverty. We have obviously considerations for English language learners as well, with students that experience disabilities. And when we talk about projected enrollment, we also discuss that this is out of general fund. This does not account for any additional funding resources such as Measure 98 or student investment accounts. So that is also something that we consider, but it's not part of the staffing ratios. And then our executive directors will be sharing specific information, but I do want to share that when we do look at class sizes, we begin to create staffing adjustments in August because we want to make sure that we're addressing the individual needs of our schools. So in doing so, we sometimes have to make involuntary transfers. We had 4 involuntary transfers at the elementary level with elementary teachers, and we had 1 secondary counselor that was involuntarily transferred, but again, provide that needed adjustment for our schools. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleagues.
Good evening. Happy Thursday. So we are prepared to highlight elementary. So we have some data over time, and in this year, you can see the average class size is approximately 24, and each child is considered a whole, but that's considered our average. Dual grade classrooms are where we have a combination of either grades, first and second grade combined, second or third grade combined, or fourth and fifth grade combined. So that the composite there is 17 across our elementary schools, which are approximately 18 elementary schools. We do not have any class sizes over 35, so that's great. I would say our lowest class size is kindergarten at the number of 17, with our highest class size of 31 in 5th grade. So that's the range for class sizes. And you can see we have approximately 171 classrooms at or below 25. So something to note for elementary, we have an established system called overflow, which means when a class size is somewhat at capacity, that we have a lot of students in a classroom where we want to welcome students in a class or another school that has fewer numbers. You can see there the numbers of students we have in another school in close proximity to their neighborhood school. So that's what overflow is. So we have approximately 25 students in our district. And if you were wondering which part of our school district, it has a range. We have some across all of our schools in our school district. And some other data we wanted to consider was students moving in and out of our virtual online program. And we have 25 students who have either returned to 10 students have transferred to in-person learning from the VOP, and 13 have moved into the virtual online program from in-person learning, and 2 students have moved outside of our school district. So that's our virtual online program flow.
All right, then on to middle school, you'll see over time, the average core class sizes. And we talk about core class sizes because oftentimes classes like PE really skew our average because those tend to be larger. So this year, the average size is below where it was pre-pandemic. The median, so right in the middle caseload, meaning the amount of students a teacher might have, is 130, and with 115 in the 25th percentile, 146 in the 75th. So kind of gives you an idea of where the bulk of that range is. And the average class sizes in those subject areas run between 24 and 30. And on to high school, there's a lot more variability in high school, and I'll explain why that is. You'll see the average core class sizes over the years, and the average size is slightly below pre-pandemic, but pretty close. Your average caseload is 172, which is not unusual in the high schools. They tend to be larger than the middles. There are many factors that impact the variation in class size. For a few examples for you, ninth grade classes tend to be they tend to be a little bit smaller because we know how important that year is of transition for students. And so that, creates some variation in the higher grade levels. Additionally, we have a lot of classes or courses that we call singletons, meaning that there's one of the course, and sometimes however many students need that course can create a variation in class size. One example is an IB literature class at Putnam, where that's this one class that's offered. There are, I believe, 39 students in the class, because it would not be possible to break that into two sections, wouldn't not be able to afford to do that. And the teacher does not want students to not have access to the class. So sometimes decisions like that are made as well that can show some variations. When there are outliers, such as the one that I just discussed, we consider those on a case-by-case basis. So in the case that I just gave you, there's a reason for that size. There was another class that we looked at the other day for a social studies teacher that we worked with the administration to figure out ways in order to move students to make that a more reasonable class size. So we do work pretty closely in trying to make sure that the caseloads teachers have are not out of line, and that classes are reasonable.
So overall, our virtual online program enrollment is down at all grade levels. In line with the information that we gathered from parent feedback, our elementary student enrollment has declined because many of the parents wanted their kiddos to go back to in-person learning, but we are also very happy to be able to offer this option as we go from pandemic, endemic to families through the rest of this year. It's also not uncommon to have higher caseloads on the virtual online program at secondary, especially due to the nature of the interaction between teachers and students. We're also excited to see how this option will grow through our multiple pathways at secondary level. And finally, I want to draw your attention to the last column in that first box that says ULS. And this is really to show that we are also serving students with very unique medically fragile needs. So they have these types of needs and maybe other impairments that have kept them from returning to in-person learning. So this is a way that these three students, again, enrollment down there, but again, happy to be able to offer this option. They receive instruction through the unique learning system. And again, it's very specialized curriculum that fulfills their needs, and we're able to accommodate those learning styles. And with that, we'll take any questions that you may have.
Thank you for the report. And also I would like to introduce Petra Callan, Executive Director of High School Programs, who spoke, and Leah Williams Rodriguez, Executive Director of Elementary Programs. So I'll open it to the board. Any questions or comments? Looking on the screen, any from Director Schradel, Director Way? Dr. Benaloga? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you for the report. Wonderful information. I just had a quick question. I saw that the elementary level, we had 9 combined classes last year and we have 17 this year. Is there a reason for that? Because that's a lot, right? And we were at that level earlier, but I was just curious as to, is it just enrollment?
Part of it is an enrollment and part of it is right sizing some classrooms and some of it is preferred by teachers. So it's a combination of all.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? Well, thank you for the report. It's very informative and it goes with the other subjects. I think that as we move forward, it's really important, but thank you for all of that. So 2022 summer learning report. And that is probably Yvonne Dibley again. So that's why you're staying here. Okay. And you'll be joined by.
I am joined this evening with Natalie Whistler, Director of Community Services, and she is an integral part of the success of our summer school program and is here with us tonight to share this very important information.
Good evening. Good evening. Tonight I get to talk about our 2022 summer learning programs and also the Oregon State Summer 22 Learning Grant. Right. Last year in 2021, the Oregon State Legislature made a historic one-time investment in summer learning programs. And we were excited to see that opportunity return again this year in 2022. The Oregon Department of Education issued a summer learning toolkit that provided a framework and a vision for these programs. They instructed us to provide programs that were accessible, equitable, diverse, and inclusive. We wanted to offer programs that were strengths-based and focused on the gifts that our students bring. We offered programs that were well-rounded, integrated, project-based, hands-on. Students had collaborative learning opportunities. We were offering culturally grounded opportunities. Our programs were relationship and student-centered. And overall, when we looked at our summer learning vision, we wanted students to have meaningful learning experiences that were centered in joy and connection. This is our student summertime experience. And we're really honored that so many of them wanted to spend their summertime with us in our buildings. And we prioritize that sense of connection and joy in their learning. Oregon passed the funding for the Summer Learning Grant in March of 2022, and we received our funding awards in April of 2022. We were awarded approximately $1.8 million for K-8 enrichment opportunities and approximately $900,000 for 9-12 credit bearing opportunities. And we launched our summer programs on June 27th. So I would draw your attention to that 2-month time span that we had to hire dozens of staff, contract with partners, set in place transportation, nutrition services, all of the operations that it takes to make this happen. So this is definitely a program that stretches us a little bit to move very quickly. Our high school credit bearing opportunities served 798 students this year. We offered traditional credit recovery, and we also offered original credit options, including some very engaging career and technical education courses. Students were able to make a hammer in one of their courses. They were able to do some graphic design, video production, and some other really engaging opportunities. This program offered transportation and meals, and overall, we were able to issue 779 full high school credits. We also offered a unique opportunity to many of our high school students to work in our K-8 programs. This is a program that we piloted last year in 2021, and it was hugely successful. We were able to expand the program a bit this year, and we had 31 high school students that worked in our K-8 enrichment programs. They worked a total of 5,512 hours. And our K-8 students loved working with our high school students. It was a meaningful first work experience for many of the high school students. They got mentoring from one of our teachers, and they were able to earn money and then also earn credit for that opportunity. We offered elementary enrichment camps, 2 locations. Our enrichment camp model ran for 6 weeks, and we offered an AM session and a PM session every day. So those sites were busy serving 2 separate student populations every week. It was like launching a whole new school every single week, building classes, building community. We heavily relied on working with many community partners to offer a broad variety of enrichment activities. Our students engaged in drama, chess, sports activities, a lot of hands-on science activities as well. We also offered enrichment at our middle school level. We served 302 middle school students out of Rao Middle School. Overall, we offered 48 middle school enrichment camps. And this was a full day model for our middle school students. Our middle school students got to participate in art, theater, cooking classes. I got to show up and judge a chopped competition on one day. And the secret ingredients that day were ramen and tahini. I don't know that I would bake cupcakes with those items on my own after trying some of those dishes. But our students were creative. They worked on their presentation skills, and it was a lot of fun. Our Title I summer school program was able to expand their services through the support of the Summer Learning Grant. We served 160 students at Title I summer school. The program offered a dual language, Spanish and English program along with their English programs. We were able to offer an extended day option so that families could have a full day experience for their students, which helps many working parents be able to access Title I summer school. And this program also offered weekly special events. Our 21st Century programs are funded by our District 21st Century Grant, and we run these in partnership with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Portland. This program was also able to expand services through the support of the grant, and we serve 231 students in grades 1st through 8 through 21st Century. Our kindergarten exploration program expanded this year. This program served 332 incoming kindergarten students at 17 elementary schools. Our incoming kindergarten students got that opportunity to have a little taste of their school day, see what the bus is like, eat a meal in the cafeteria, and walk through those routines. This year, we entered into our 10th year of offering Summer Art Academy. This is the first year that the Art Academy was completely free to students through the support of the grant. This program served 115 students and offered students a studio arts model experience. Our care program expanded this year, and we served about 50% more students in our full day 8-week care program over 2021. And we also expanded hours this year in our care program. We offered an early morning option that lengthened our day in care. We also were able to offer an extended school year program for our students who receive special education services. ESY provides skill maintenance and learning recovery for students. And on top of that, 404 students received recovery services to help recover learning lost during the pandemic. Our students received recovery services in a variety of ways at a variety of locations. We were able to integrate recovery services in many of our other programs. Some students received individualized recovery support while at their enrichment site or while at their care site. Our students didn't have to lose out on all of those other opportunities because they needed recovery. And that was really important to us that we were able to provide all of those choices to all of our students. Our programs prioritize students experiencing multiple barriers. That includes our students who qualify as emergent bilingual, migrant, experience disability, our students experiencing houselessness, students experiencing poverty, and students who need to earn high school credit. Our schools identified families that met this criteria, and we worked to provide individual follow-up to 300 families. We used a custom parent square group to provide targeted email communication to these families, early access to registration. And then we also did a lot of phone calls to these families using interpreters as needed. And then on top of that, we advertise these programs in multiple languages, in school newsletters. We connected with counselors and staff and put out all sub messages to Parent Square and created a Summer 22 Facebook page to be able to engage with the community. We were able to provide some pretty robust mental health supports at our summer learning programs through a partnership with LifeStance. They provide clinicians on site, so we were able to contract with them for mental health services. They ended up providing 132 hours of individual student therapy on site within our summer learning programs. They also provided 62 hours of crisis support. They were there when our students needed immediate help on site this summer. And then they provided 536 hours supporting our classes, leading small groups, leading groups through skills development, and supporting our staff in their understanding of student mental health. The NCSD Smile Squad supports our dental health program. And for the first time, we integrated some dental health support into our summer learning as well. So we were able to provide dental services to 77 students, placed 443 sealants, and referred 21 students on for additional care for untreated decay. I actually got to witness the screening at Linwood with this young person there. And it was so fun. For many students, it was their first dental experience, and it was rather novel that it happened to be in the school library. And our Smile Squad staff were so warm and engaging that it was a really positive experience for these young students. We definitely couldn't have served this number of students without community partnerships. We did not have the staffing resources to do this on our own, and we relied heavily on our partners, and they bring in many experiences and areas of expertise that are a little bit different than what we do. These are just some of the community partners that we worked with this summer. They include local nonprofits and small businesses that we're able to bring in content for our students. Right. I mentioned the timeline earlier, and I would definitely identify that as a challenge of this grant. It's hard to put together programs on this scale within such a short period. On top of that, we had some challenges in staffing. We're feeling that in schools now, and we certainly felt it over the summer when we were inviting folks to come back, take their couple of days off in between the end of the school year and come and join us for a full summer. And many of our community partners experienced staffing dilemmas as well. In some cases, our community partners weren't able to fulfill their full contracts because they could not hire the staff to do what they had hoped to do. Our other challenge this summer was the weather. It was a warm summer in all of our buildings. We did plan ahead, and for the first time, we rented some portable air conditioning units. So each summer program was able to offer a cooling center for staff and students. And we were able to stay open throughout the whole summer. All right. Overall, we served 3,600 students. That is 1,500 additional students over last year. So we increased services pretty substantially over last year, and we were able to provide 37,852 meals and snacks and 1,718 hours of transportation. Those are big lifts for our operations departments who are really able to come through to make those key pieces happen. It took a lot of staff and dedicated administrators, teachers, classified staff, operations staff to put this together. And so I am able to present a little bit of their work, but this was definitely a huge team lift for us. And we operated out of 21 sites across the district overall. I'd open it up to questions.
Okay, thank you for all of the information and great programs. Who would like to ask a question or, oh, it looks like Director Perez has joined us and he has his hand up. So you want to go ahead, Director Perez? It's online.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I just have one quick question, Natalie. I was wondering, when you mentioned 62 hours of crisis, what would that entail? Can you provide an example of what a crisis report, like what would fall into a crisis? And then my second follow-up question to that is, when you do have a student that falls into that crisis and or even the individual student therapy that you mentioned, what are the steps to, what do we do to make sure that that child and their family is connected to establish resource literacy so they know and are knowledgeable of the resources that are available to them? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe most of the hours of crisis support included suicide prevention screening for students or immediate behavioral and mental health crisis. So a student that is experiencing acute mental health distress while in our buildings. And we also had a few families that were experiencing crisis and came to us for support with that immediate crisis. So I believe that captures most of those hours of crisis support. In those cases, it was critical that we have someone on site that's able to work with that family. And we worked in advance with our partners at LifeStance to make sure that we had a follow-up system for those situations. We were able to refer those families into ongoing therapy and also refer them into supports that we already have built into our school system. We work with both LifeStance and Trillium year-round, and so we're able to have pathways to continue supporting those families. In many cases, our summer program admin and staff were able to provide some follow-up with the counseling team and admin team at the student's school so that we're able to start the school year with some support in place for that family.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have some.
Okay, Director Way.
Yes, Natalie, thank you so much for this presentation. I just love that we were able to serve so many students this year. And I have a personal connection to summer programs because I started my career 15 or so years ago at a summer program for English language learners in a different district. And, it was just such an eye-opening experience for me because I know that a lot of kids, unfortunately, there's a school provides a safe environment for them, right? And usually summertime, people are doing different things, families are going on vacation, but for sometimes some of our most vulnerable kiddos, they really don't have those safe spaces and those safe connections, unfortunately. So I'm glad that we were able to serve so many, and I'm glad that a lot of them are getting the best out of the program, given some of our limitations. So my question really is just how do we continue, right? These efforts. I know that This was one-time funding from the state, and I know we're always trying to look at additional resources, additional funding that we can, pull together to, again, continue to provide that consistency that we know that our kiddos need, and that, quite frankly, sometimes our families depend on over the summer. So I don't know if you have any thoughts or ideas to share around potential, kind of looking into next summer. And then I don't know if there are programs that you feel like, wow, like we really had high interest, in this with this particular, student population. And we just want to like, hands-on, like, we want to continue to grow this program. I would be really interested in knowing what some of those key programs or highlights might be that maybe we as a board, just need to further look into to see what we can do to help support or advocate.
Yeah, absolutely. Summer planning is definitely a year-round process. And I think one of our challenges is this year-to-year funding, right? So we plan as if we will have funding, and we also have a plan in place in case we have no funding. And that's a difficult cycle. So I think that's one thing that holds us back is the year-to-year nature of this funding stream that we're using to make this happen, and the uncertainty that's there. As far as things we would like to grow or expand, I think we observed that almost all of our summer programs that we offered ran at capacity. So this year, things filled, and we added more camps wherever we could, and those filled. And so everything that we offered had very high demand. And so I'd like to continue that. I would also really love to expand our offerings for culturally specific programs. We were able to use a lot of our own NCSD staff to offer culturally specific programs and some partnerships. But I recognize that our culturally specific partners are tapped out. Every district is looking to partner and offer very specialized services. And so we need to keep planning how to grow that on our own, and then also how to partner and continue to be a good supportive partner for those groups that can come alongside culturally specific organizations.
Director Way, what I would add to that conversation is that we are also looking at different funding sources. So for example, there is a grant that we are looking into applying for that is specifically to provide culturally specific experiences and partnerships. So again, how Natalie said that we have like a bare minimum, we're seeking other funding sources, and we're really starting a lot of this planning a lot earlier, trying to troubleshoot how our system can be more efficient in ways of communication and ways of staffing. And again, just planning for in a much earlier timeline, so that when we do get word, and hopefully we will get word that we will have additional funding for the summer, we have already, that the planning is already taken care of.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. And I just really want to commend you all, because this, it's during the fall, we have school, business as usual. And the summer program, it's a life on its own. So I really appreciate just all the hands on deck with this, and just the thoughtfulness. And again, Natalie, you're also saying, the meals, right, and the transportation, and just all of that additional coordination. And my last thought is just, and again, you may have talked about this, but involving the parents, and I think continuing to get their feedback, not just as, hey, we have this program, and like, is your family interested? But I think really using parents as a resource as well. I was, reflecting back on the comments earlier around, the faith community, and that could be a way that we can leverage resources, right? Is like, what are businesses doing? What are faith communities doing? I know a ton of them have summer programs over the summer, also even in culturally specific communities. So I'm just kind of speaking from my own sort of professional and personal experience working with a lot of parents before in several other districts, and parents have a lot of ideas as well. So perhaps we can kind of tap into that resource and knowledge as we're planning into next year of, how can we come together as a community, right, to make sure that we have the best summer programs that we have for all kids. So thank you.
Any other questions from board members or input? Oh, Director Benaloga.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the great report. What an amazing feat. What an amazing summer 2022 was in our district. And it's that I was just amazed. I didn't even realize the scope of everything that happened. So thank you so much for that. I had several questions, but a lot of them have already been asked. So I had a quick question about the high school credit option. So how, as far as students being able to recover credit, how were we able to accommodate any special needs students, either IEP wise or special needs in other ways? Were we able to accommodate those kids as well for credit recovery?
What I know that Dr. Summers has been doing this for a really long time, and she starts working with our secondary folks to establish who needs credit. She has a special session that runs for seniors only. So I believe that there were like 50 plus seniors that were just short and were able to get their credits and be able to kind of cross that threshold. But yeah, so she works with the secondary folks to ensure that any kind of accommodations we are able to provide, and then she is able to organize in a way that is really focused on the credits that are needed and looking at the transcripts, et cetera. So it's a team effort, and she is well versed at it. She's done it for many, many years, and that's kind of how that happens.
All right, excellent. Thank you. And just one more quick question about have you identified what any barriers that there are for kiddos actually completing the whole session, completing the whole 4 weeks, or are most of the students staying in the program for the entire time?
I think within our K-8 programs, even the programs that ran week to week, so those summer enrichment classes, for example, some families would sign up for 1 week and then come back and sign up for something every week. And we certainly saw that at the middle school level, where students wanted that consistency and tended to come every single week. I think that held true for most of our opportunities, that students wanted to come back.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, I just had a couple, and I think most of my questions were answered, but was all the money spent then, or were these staffing barriers which prevented that from happening?
Yeah. So we're still wrapping up our final finances from this grant. We have 2 more days to complete our spending period. And we're still working to get those final invoices from our partners. And so we're wrapping that up, and we don't have final information yet, but it does look like there will be some money unspent, and largely due to those unfulfilled partner contracts. We had an amount allocated for each contract, and when they didn't spend to that amount, that left money that was unspent.
Okay, and we don't continue that to the next summer.
Yeah,
Correct.
we can't roll over any money from this grant. It has to be spent on summer 22.
Well, also I saw where you expanded some programs already. And so I think the idea, and you did this before and you checked with parents, see what their needs are, and you're doing that. Also waiting lists. Did we have quite a few then, waiting lists for care and for enrichment? And
Yeah, many of our programs did still run a waiting list. Enrichment classes ran short waiting lists for most classes. CARE still had a few hundred students on a waiting list, even with that 50% expansion.
Well, it's such a strong need, and not knowing that the funding is there year to year. We've got to get that message down to Salem when we're down there lobbying, that this should be something that is there every year for our kids. But thank you for all the information. I appreciate your work, and it's a great program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the Student Success Act, Students Investment Account Annual Report. I welcome Student Investment Account Administrator Joel Stewart joining us by Zoom. So nice to see you, even if it's on Zoom, Joel.
Yes, it's good to see you, and good evening to all of the school board. And it's always good to see you. And I would like to also introduce the Director of Integrated Programs, Jen Dove Kiltow, who will be joining me this evening.
Hi.
Welcome.
So with that, we'll wait for the slide to go up. All right. The purpose, and I know you've heard this a lot, but I think it's really important to continue to emphasize, and that is that the purpose of the student account funds are for two purposes, and that is to meet the students' mental and behavioral health needs. And then number two is to increase academic achievement while reducing academic disparities. And we extensively went out in 2019-20 and have continued to engage our community, our staff, our students, and there's themes that keep coming up. And I'd like to emphasize those two for this annual report in regards to this past year. Here are those key themes: increasing mental health supports, retaining and recruiting a diverse staff, lowering class size and caseload, strengthening culturally relevant practices throughout our system, developing community partnerships, increasing proficiency in literacy grades K through 3, and expanding social services to students and families. This coming year will be our third year going into receiving funds for student investment account. But I would like to note, if you look at 2021, we were projected and proposed allocation was approximately $13.5 million. Very into August, we were notified that those funds would not be coming through, so that we needed to relook at our plan, and we were only able to allocate $4.3 million. So this past year, we're still not 21-22, this past year that I will be reporting on, we received $12.5 million, which is much improved upon last year's allocation. But it's really the first year that we came close to receiving the funds that we were originally proposed at the first of this grant. Again, this will be the coming up. If you see where we are allocated $13.2 million for next year, which at our annual review next fall, we'll have a conversation about those funds, but we're focused on right on that middle. What happened with the $12.5 million? So the next slide, with going back to those key themes, I hope that you'll see in each of the strategies that were created from listening to our public, from our students, from our staff, of strategies then that would get to those themes. We're going to invest in targeted class size reduction and caseload. We're going to invest in teams of professionals to support behavioral health and wellness. We're going to go out and support partnerships. We're going to invest in job-embedded professional development. And we're going to find ways to reduce barriers for accessing academic interventions. So each of these the public can go onto our website, and under student investment account, you'll find a more detailed list of what did the 5.5 million for strategy 1, what did it pay for strategy 2, and so on. That is part of this board packet, and it's also listed on our website. So if you go to the next slide, I just want you to look at the positive impact, and I couldn't fit everything on here, but some things that stand out. We have the class size caseload report tonight. We have 60 FTE that the student investment account has paid K through 12. Think about what would our system look like without 60 educators. You go down ongoing professional development, and with the work that's being done with grading practices, talking about how we hire, strategies that can incorporate so that our staff can look more like our student demographic. How do we do that? Right below, the board supported the purchase of K2 classroom libraries and decodables for literacy, which right below that then is providing literacy supports through a summer institute. So go back to those key themes. What did our public say? K2, K3 literacy. So what does our plan do? It's supporting what, again, we heard from our public, what our data is showing us that we need to be doing. We heard at the bottom of this, we have Youth Truth, Thought Exchange, Parent Square, all tools for better communication and engagement. In addition to the small groups, the one-on-one, face-to-face personal interaction, just that was presented tonight, the group of students on the equity committee. It's bringing people together to hear their voices, to make sure that our plan is fulfilling and meeting the needs of each of our students. So if you go to the next slide, Jen. So just as Natalie said, there are definitely challenges that have come up along the way. And not like last year, the year before, where we went from 13.5 to 4.3 and had a late start. There still are challenges as we look at COVID and taking staff to devote to time, energy to come up with some new guidelines, to have an emergency meeting to do that. So it is something that has to, but it's the urgent, it's the now that has to happen, but it does take away from some of the focus and the work that we had to do. The shortage of teacher substitutes last year was incredible. And so some of our strategic work, our initiatives that we've put into play, so such as case size, caseload, such as literacy experts, they then had to go and substitute and not again do the work that they were intended to, because there was a bigger system issue that needed to be dealt with that became the urgent. So I do want to emphasize the shortage of teacher substitutes. And with that, professional development, we had budgeted where we would bring substitutes in and teachers could get professional development throughout the day in some circumstances, which we had to put aside. And because we could not find the substitutes to do that, and our students needed our permanent staff day to day as much as possible. And then hiring is always a challenge, and that was mentioned in the PE report tonight, when all of the state is now going from about a third of their budget to almost full budget, we're all trying to hire the same people. and which creates some delays and sometimes not able to fill because of that. And so I think there's a lot to celebrate. I do want to emphasize that as we look towards the future, we cannot do everything that we wish we could. It would be great instead of 4 social workers to have 10 social workers. It would be great to increase our nursing staff. It would be great to even lower our class sizes even longer, even more so. But with that, then you have to make a decision. Then if we put more resources towards one of those, what then do we take away to make that happen? And so with that, Jen Dove Kiltow will be leading us in then, because this is the last year of this agreement with the student investment account. So I will turn it over to Jen to talk about next steps, and then we're open to any questions that the board might have.
Thanks, Joel. So yeah, I'm here to talk tonight about integrated programs. As Joel mentioned, it's time for us to start planning for the next 4 years. And ODE has put out guidance around the integration of 6 programs. That includes SIA, Measure 98 High School Success, the Continuous Improvement Plan, Career Technical Education, Everyday Matters, and Early Indicators and Intervention Systems. And what that means is there will be a single application and submission that combines the planning, needs assessment, community engagement, budgeting, and evaluation of all of those 6 programs together. It's a big endeavor, but we're really excited to get started this fall, where we're doing a lot of community engagement and assessing of our needs. So we are reaching out. This very much reflects the what we did with the original SIA plan, in that we're going out into the community through thought exchange, through focus groups, through focal groups of family, students, and staff. We're doing surveys and interviews and listening sessions. And then of course, we'll have information on our website, and really looking at what we've done these past 4 years and where we want to go as we move forward. Certainly, we're going to update our board on this work multiple times throughout the process. And in addition, we'll also be posting the final submission before we submit the plan for public comment. So the public will have time to review, comment on it, and then certainly there'll be a board presentation as well. And then in March, the final plan is submitted to ODE for the final review. It will go through a review board that they're putting together. And we will also do some development of longitudinal performance growth targets along with ODE as part of the final plan. So there will be ongoing evaluation of all 6 of those programs.
So we are
Go ahead.
open to any questions that you would have, but I would like to say one other piece. And Shay talked about celebrating success with gratitude. And our business office, when you talk about every penny has to be accounted for and connected to this grant and where it's being purchased and eventually then being audited. I just give a big thanks to our accounting department who puts forth a lot of time, and I know a lot of others do too, but I just want to give them a shout out. This has been a lot of work in putting all, crossing the T's, dotting the I's in accounting for each dollar that was spent.
Great, thank you. Let's open it up to questions. Do I see any hands online first from directors? Don't see any hands. Director Benaloga, can depend on you for a question.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. It's wonderful what we've been able to do with some extra funding. I did want to ask about, I remember when we were originally doing the community outreach, Joel, and you were really targeting and making sure that we went to where the people were. And so can you talk a little bit about what that engagement is going to look like this time?
I will turn that over to Jen because she will be in charge of that. So I will let Jen speak on that.
Thanks. Yeah, so very similarly to what has happened in the past, we have been looking for different community spaces where we can go out, and we are running into some barriers that we're working around. Last time Joel and his team went to apartment complexes. Right now, we have apartment complexes that, due to COVID restrictions that they have, are not opening up to their common spaces. But we do have 2 planned for the Wichita Center, where we will be out reaching out to specific groups. We're also looking at, are there other communal spaces in the community where we can go, maybe a library or starting to get a little dark and cold at night. So we're putting the parks on the back burner, but we are looking for other spaces. But so far we have 2 planned events that we're going to announce late next week.
All right, excellent. I think that's wonderful. It's just so important that not only that our families understand and know what we're going to be doing with the funds, but then also kind of be involved in that process and what changes and what did they see. I just think that's so important. And I appreciate your dedication to making sure that we're hearing as many voices as possible. It's very important. Thank you so much.
And Director Benaloga, I would also add to that just like when I helped lead the initial, we had just concluded a strategic plan campaign. Jen is receiving also, there is a lot of data, as the board knows, from that as to what our community, so it's that and so I don't want to forget too, this past year we have spent a lot of time engaging our community, so that would be in addition to.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Chair. Oh, go ahead.
If you don't mind my interjecting here to pull a couple more pieces together, we are headed into a legislative session, odd year legislative session. So when you look at the strategic plan information, the information that the two advisories that Dr. James talked about in the Division 22 report, talking about the needs assessment information that Director Kiltow is talking about, when we pull that all together, that will serve as the basis for our legislative agenda information, trying to pull all those pieces together so you know where we're headed in December, January. Thank you.
Great. That was really helpful. And it was kind of what I was thinking too, that we have all of these programs, like you mentioned, Measure 98, ESSER, one time dollars in the student investment. And then we have our plan. They're all melded together. And in your packet, I think you did a great job of doing that. And your last 2 sentences in the packet of information that you had, you talked about prioritizing the dollars where they need to be and not having programs that are successful all of a sudden stop. So I know a lot of thought is going into this with lots of input. So I really appreciate that. Anything else, board? Excellent. We're so lucky to have the people that we have on all of these programs working on it. Thank you so much, Jen and Joel.
Thank you.
Okay, coming up to the next and last agenda item is policy revisions. I welcome Chief of Staff Tiffany Sharman to lead the discussion. Welcome, Tiffany.
Good evening, chairs, directors. It's my pleasure to be here this evening, and I'm bringing forward a discussion item. I'm not seeking action tonight. These are proposed revised policies. They're in your board packet. There's 3 that I'm referring to tonight. The first is, first of all, these 3 policies in the packet all are coming forward with the support of the Superintendent's Policy Review Team, which has both representation of staff and board. First, BBA, board member qualifications. This particular policy is coming forward because the Oregon School Boards Association has recognized the importance of aligning the language in our policy to the language in state statute and the Oregon Constitution regarding who can become a board member. So really, there's no functional change for us, but the Oregon School Boards Association is being pretty clear about we need to point the language back to the statutes and the Constitution rather than trying to interpret that for the public in any way. So no functional change, some wording there. The next are policies Cb and Cbc, and these are both related to the board and the superintendent and how the two interact. These are being proposed based on the passage of Senate Bill 1521 this last legislative session. Specifically, these are new provisions that the board needs to consider when issuing the superintendent's contract. Boards cannot require a superintendent to take actions that are contrary to state law. There have been some examples in our state that really brought forward and into the light for the legislature to move forward with some employment protections for superintendents, ensuring that they cannot have adverse employment action when what they're doing is following state, federal, local law, or ODE guidance. Those are the policies that I have for you. They are proposed. I'm available for questions and we'll be back at the next meeting for action.
Any questions? Well, thank you. I guess you're off the hook. Thank you so much. And we'll see you
Closing out the
then.
meeting tonight. Lucky me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And that brings our meeting to a close. Thank you for being here and listening. There was so much information, and I think especially anyone who wants to understand what drives our programs, it is the money. And there is all of this is connected so much with our strategic plan, and we're all learning together. So with patience and kindness, we can keep doing this. Thank you so much. I adjourn the meeting at 8:17.